Just a bit of a reflection. We've had three webinars to date on UniPhi 21. This is called the third one because the first one was sort of pre-launch on the AI summarizer for documents and issues. Then we did the new resource planning functionality, which has gone down well with some early adopters. And last week was on the reporting changes, specifically around sort of progress reporting using the documents module. But also the ability, to create your own views and your own charts in here. Jump to the webinar and we get a new view of the world with lots of charting and tables that we can pivot to as we see fit. So two of those webinars have recordings that you can request. The resource planning one got corrupted, which is why if you come along to these things, you at least get the benefit of seeing it once, if not more times. And I've got this recording happening and chugging along as well, so you'll be able to access everything we cover here again later when we publish it, either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. All right, so today's one is focused on contractual management. It's not just in the contracts module. We're going to be looking at some issues management stuff that we've enhanced off the back of our collaboration with Intium that we shared on LinkedIn this week, a press release with the work we've been doing with them, which has been fantastic, a really interesting and exciting organization to do some energy-based projects on. And so, yeah, everyone else getting the benefits of some of the stuff we've been doing with them. So, yeah, fair bit of stuff in the contracts module, but then also some stuff on contractual workflow, obligation management, and then into really nitty-gritty contract stuff around contract derivative calculations, contract dates management, and bulk processing of claims, potentially generally used by managing, consultants during design phase on construction jobs and things like that. So let's jump in. Item number one is setting up contracts, either in a new deployment or you've got a new program of works. In UniPhi 21, you no longer have to do that one by one. So if I jump across to this contracts module here, and you'll see that there's a upload button that doesn't exist in UniPhi 20. Like all of our uploads, apart from the cost and revenue module budgets, which are old school file uploads, these are copy paste. So when I click on this, you'll see that you get an option to import contracts, contract deliverables, or variations. And there's kind of a order of operations here, really. You can't import deliverables to a contract if that contract doesn't exist. So we're going to start with the contracts one. And I have a pre-prepared spreadsheet. We have these templated now that we send out to clients that are starting new, and the color scheme here being, mandatory is green, yellow is optional, and I'm not sure what that color is supposed to mean. And so you'll see that there's a whole bunch of header dates and header information you can capture against your contracts. We've got 2 projects, so this is multi-project setup. We've got 9 contracts that we're going to set up. And these are the mandatory fields, these green ones that you need to have to get that to happen. So I'm just going to highlight that green range, that we don't have any data in this yellow range, so we don't need to worry about that. Click copy, come across to our UniPhi screen, paste. Now, the thing that's worth noting with your information is that that's automatically identified the field names because A, we've done it before, and B, they kind of map. But your data sources from a third-party system may be different. That's okay. Don't worry about renaming them. Just paste it in here because you'll manually map. So this is the field name out of Excel across the first column, and you'll say that maps to project ID, and contract type maps to type, and PO number maps to PO number, etc. So if your names are different, don't worry, don't change them, just paste the data in and then map to the relevant field. And if there's columns that you have in your data that you don't need to map to, just say no mapping, and it'll ignore that. So that's consistent on all the copy paste. And on all the copy paste, what's consistent as well is the validation icon. And so you'll see here that it's validated with 3 errors. So about 6 rows were okay. When I hover on Eric Baker, it'll tell me that Eric Baker does not belong to the New Age Development Organization. So I could go to the resources module now, add Eric Baker into that organization, and then redo this. Or I could hit save and create the 6 contracts that were validated correctly. Or we've got a similar deployment where it will work, and that's what I'm going to do. So this is a different deployment. The one's called construction. That was dev test. And I click validation and it says 9 rows validated. Before I hit save, I better sort of prove up the concept a little bit. So we've got some project numbers here, 100139. If I go to 100 residential towers, and I go to the contracts module, you'll see we've got a main works contract and a project management services contract. And when we look at the import screen, these are all cost contracts. They're going to be an architect, geotech, structural, electrical, and structural. So it's 3. It's actually 3 projects. And then, 3 projects into the 10092 and then the 17543. So just quickly jumping to the 17543. We've got literally no contracts there. So we've validated that's successful. I've clicked save, I click close. And if I just jump to this screen now and hit refresh, we've now got our 3 contracts there. So hopefully, either, as I said, onboarding as a new client or starting a new program of works if you're a client-side PM business with a new client that has a bunch of contracts already let, or it could be other scenarios within this framework that you might want to create. Infrastructure projects where projects aren't projects or activities. So these are an activity list and you want to create contracts within them. These are the use cases of that. Now, the next step in the puzzle is to get some deliverables against it. And so in this instance, this is not portfolio. You will need to have these contract numbers, and again, it's a portfolio calc, and it'll match on the contract number and import that information in. Apologies for the confusion on this, but yeah, okay. So long as the PA number is unique, but this doesn't even have a project number, so I'm a bit concerned about this one. This was set up for me, and I didn't test it before I did the webinar. Let's see what happens. Feeling saucy. Got to go back to all projects. You can obviously import these within the contract itself, but obviously doing 20 contracts one at a time and doing it that way is time consuming. So the UniPhi 21 upgrade is to be able to do this as a portfolio basis. I'm not going to linger on this too much, but this time we're selecting contract deliverables. That changes the fields that we can map to. And I'm just going to assume that these things aren't going to find it. I guess I can map that to PO and see what it does. There you go. Project ID is required, as expected. So I need to go back to that source information and chuck those project IDs back into the system for it to work. So a bit of a data quality issue on my webinar presentation, but you get the idea. Portfolio-based project updates, get that information in. So, insert probably to the left, I guess. Oops, not with the copy paste on it. And put your project ID in there and type it in, copy paste, away you go. This is the kind of benefit of that validation to stop you having to hunt down errors after you've imported. A lot of the time it just wouldn't have imported anyway, and you wouldn't know, or it's hard to give that feedback loop, whereas with this we can give you that feedback loop directly when you do the copy paste. All right, so that's the first feature on display today. The next one is totally unrelated to that. We're going to start working on dates. And when we're talking about dates, we're talking about contractual obligations. And one of the keys that we've updated in UniPhi 21 is the ability to have multiple calendars, so that if you've got a contract that relates to business day response times, you can configure a calendar that will adjust to your business days, which will obviously be different in Australia for different states. And apparently in New Zealand, there's quite a few different regions with different calendars, which can even be construction calendars, if you need them to be, and things like that. So where that's happening is in the configuration module of the application. So if I go into configuration and I go to financial years, you'll see there's a non-working day sub-navigation. which was there in UniPhi 20, but there wasn't the ability to create multiple calendars. And so you can create here a New South Wales one. And when you do that, you then start going in and you start marking off. Obviously, in the default one, you might have the standard public holidays already marked so that when you copy it, you don't have to redo it. But you would then also do, Labor Day being the first Monday in October, and that's specific to New South Wales and Victoria and maybe South Australia. Queensland is a different date. So this is where you start to manage those factors. And so once you've generated those dates correctly, you then need to associate it to the project so that the dates can be used when using these contractual date management flowcharts and contractual date management that I'm going to show you next. So when I go back to a project, once I've created that, each project now will have the ability to have a calendar associated to it in its edit profile. So if I select New South Wales here and hit save, this ANZ office development in Fitzroy is now going to be using that calendar to drive what is a business day for its generation of due dates on obligations. So that's a pretty crucial thing to set up first. Then the next thing we've done is we've rewritten the issue workflow functionality, mainly from a system admin perspective. So all the system admins on the call will be cheering at this. They don't get a lot of love sometimes because there's less of them than programmer project managers. But so we kind of build these configs quickly. But we've redone these ones. And so you'll see there's a sub navigation here on workflows. Guided workflows is something else I'm not going to touch on, but keep things simple today. The first change is this screen here is so much easier. It used to be a long scroll of all the different workflow steps, and you couldn't find the one you actually wanted to edit. It would take you forever. This also is giving you the ability to link workflows to different metadata types, and the common capability of including a whole bunch of other information into these views has also been brought into this screen. Equally, you've got a sortable data grid. So if you want to sort on location so that you can group all of the, say, NEC workflows that you've done now. NEC is new engineering contracts, popular in the UK. Coming out to Australia, Sydney Water operates on them. It's used in New Zealand a bit as well. What we've got here is NEC3. I think it's mainly the main contract setup. So NEC3 is a suite of contracts, but this is using the one that's the sort of main works contract. And you've got all of these different workflows that exist for different events. And so you'll see here that we've got the overall time frame for these events set up. And so that's where that calendar is going to use to determine what is a business day. It'll use that calendar on that project. And then when I click in on these, so for example, let's say NEC3 payment, it'll have the clause numbers in the way we set this up. This is a manual setup, but you have the ability to do this on any contract for any situation. The different actions you need to do when making a payment under these clauses, and the duration you have to make them, and who should do them. And so that functionality existed before, but nowhere near as easily created and used as this new system enables you to do. And it also didn't have the capability of using the multiple calendars for the business days. So then when I go to use this particular piece of functionality, I obviously need to be in an NEC project for that to be available. So I can select NEC here and just click apply, so that I'm only doing projects that will enable me to do it. I go into this grammar school project. I click the plus button. This can be a Securities and Payment Act thing as well for your Australian standard contracts and things like that. You just need to change the flow, and you've got options here as to which ones you're doing. It's possible to link those to categories. So for example, I select early warning. This list could reduce to the early warning notice. So that's a 21 capability as well, just to make it as simple as possible for people to pick the right workflow. So there's a fair bit of configuration in all of that. And then the overall due date will be selected based on the actions that sit underneath this workflow. So when I click the little drill through option, you can see that the actions are automatically being identified, the people who are involved, which would be contractor and PM, and the due date has been set. In some instances, this would normally be closed out to then go to the compensation event, but some companies are now just tagging the compensation event as a change and then selecting the compensation event clause and having that respond so that you get the commentary history building up over time throughout the life of this issue resolution, whatever it is that's happened on the contract. And so, yeah, this is a goal to integrate contractor and client and PM into the one workflow. You can associate documents to these issues through the contracts module, which we'll do in a moment, and you can link these. So the next thing to demonstrate within this is a UniPhi 21 feature. When I go to the contracts module, if these compensation events and early warnings relate to this main works contract, there may be 20 or 30 deliverables within this contract. This has only got one, but obviously maybe even many if it's a QS managing it through quantity unit and rate type management. If I click on the little commentary thing here, we can now link that issue into this particular deliverable so that we're tying in the issue management to the deliverable that we're delivering. And so if there's any schedule delay, if it's a separable portion, it might have an EOT claim against it, so on and so forth. You can manage that as you go. And so now when I go back to that issue, it's going to have this particular deliverable associated with it within the issue as well. So got related deliverables here within an issue that you're managing. So it's joining the dots of day-to-day conversation, day-to-day issue management with the contract administration, contract valuation. You've been able to do that linking on variations for some time, which, you know, is quite important when you're talking about conversations that relate to why did we approve this variation? How did we go from a $15,000 quote to a £12,000 in this instance evaluation? But again, you've got that link there with the conversations coming in from email and directly into the system from different people collaborating around those issues. So the big enhancement within that is you can now do that against deliverables, which don't necessarily need to be financial deliverables. So some of the key timeline related deliverables are being logged within the contract value screen now in UniPhi, and then they're having those links to issues that drive the tracking of the schedule instead of just the valuation of the dollars. All right, so that's the sort of relationships to collaboration, issue, workflow, collaboration, linking that to a contractual value or a contractual date, and being able to have those sort of threads that roll from conversations up to a high level issue register or variations register or deliverable register. The next bit is quite nitty gritty, and it's all to do with managing payment claims. And the way we've sort of updated three things around that actually, around the way we are able to derive how much retention to hold against a claim. And then the second bit being the dates that responses need to be made when issuing the certificate. That's clearly dynamically populated. And then when managing consultant claims, the ability to bulk process those claims to the client for payment using a different type of claim document. So let's just quickly cover off those three, and that'll get us through this UniPhi 21 webinar. So again, under the configuration module, if you go into the contracts screen, one of the payment the new sub-navigations available under UniPhi 21 is this payment schedule. And you can see that we've already created one, but you can create as many as you like. And we've labeled it claim dates. And when I click on it, it's similar to that issue methodology table we showed before. It's saying that there's a date that we capture in the claim itself. It could be the receive date, the claim date, or you know, it's unlikely to be these last three. And based off that date, the certification date needs to be done within 4 days. And the due date is, you know, whatever you type in there. And again, the business days factor comes in here. So that working calendar that we created at the start of the webinar is going to be the thing that drives that. So associate the working calendar to the project, go to the contracts module. And then when you're in the contracts module, there will be under the edit screen of the contract itself, the details section, a payment schedule drop down, and you'll be able to change it from these payment terms to claim dates. And now it'll use the claim dates to drive the dates that are displayed on the payment certificate, which I'll show you in a moment. Because when I go to the invoice to process a claim on this particular contract, I'm now going to demonstrate the claim adjustments. So in the claim adjustments, you've got two options here. You've got the ability just to put one in and put in what it is, or just label it in a certain way. These are just sort of generic labelings, but once you select them, you can actually change the text anyway, and that's what will flow through to the certificate. Otherwise, what you can do is you can derive the claim. Now, there was existing functionality around this. That was this one that you're looking at here. But what we've done is we've added two more to support different contracts in Australia and New Zealand. There's a fourth one coming that didn't fit into the 21 methodology. So in this scenario, what it is actually doing is saying, okay, derive 10% of the adjusted contract value and a maximum amount of 5% of the claim on either the adjusted contract claim value or the original contract claim value. And so what that will then do is it'll look at what you're claiming, and then of course you want to hold that against the code so the actuals are updated correctly. So it's going to look at the current claim, which is 0 at the moment, but if I go and put in a value and go, okay, I can take 5% of that up to a maximum amount of £2 million, which is the 5% of the 29 million. So it's going to, and I've entered it in the wrong way, should be a negative. If you're going to deduct, if in some of our jurisdictions, they actually give advances. So we had to make this a little bit less intuitive than I would have liked, in the sense that advances are positive numbers where they actually pay a contractor up front, and others are negatives. And so we need to make it go like that to get that to be correct. So now it's going to deduct that as a maximum amount over time, but in this claim, it's only deducting $2,500 from the claim value to give you $47,500. And so that methodology is there. And then the other one that we can do, if I delete that, is automated on the actual claim value rather than, oops, I clicked the wrong button. It's the derivative thing here. So click that. You've now got the ability to select amount complete. And so you can say, okay, we're going to do 25% on this for, and this is where there could be ranges. So for the first 0 to £1 million, we do that. 25% is a bit excessive, isn't it? Let's do negative 2.5. And then again, you can say, is that for the entire contract or a separable portion? So if you had headings of separable portions, you could do it on that. And again, you still need to allocate it to a code for the actuals. And then you can add in the next range and the next range and so on and so forth. So you might have 5 lines of retention here that's going to build up over time. That's going to be based on the actual claim value. So the contract value has nothing to do with it. And it's just how much you've cumulatively claimed up to a certain amount. I don't know if that's useful for the people on the call, but it's useful for our clients who have come to us for that requirement. Now, to demonstrate how those claim dates are coming in, I'm now going to create this claim. Again, a UniPhi 21 thing is to put contextual document links everywhere we can possibly think. So when I click this link, it's only going to show me claim templates, progress claim templates, right? So hopefully you don't have as many as this, but, and again, hopefully if you do, you've linked them to contract standards, because this would then limit the options of selection. You've been able to do that for ages. So if you've got different claims for different contract standards, you can link the standard to the contract and then link the template to the standard as well. And that way you only get a small list of options. And when I select certified progress claim, you'll remember that the dates on the certification date and the due date were going to be based on the contractor's invoice date. There's also another option here. What date do we use for actuals, right? So typically it was originally certification date, hard coded, you couldn't change it. Then we changed it, much to some people's displeasure, to contractor's date. Now it's up to you to choose, and we've added an extra date for you to be able to choose from. So you can choose that date, the contractor's work to date, which in my opinion is the best one because that's the earned value date. the contractor's invoice date or the certification date. And what that means, whichever date that is, that's where the value will go into the phased actual profile of the cash flow when you're looking at the cash flow of the project. And if you're then going to use that to drive cash flow forecasting, which I showed in our phasing presentation a few weeks ago, you want it to be as accurate as possible, but you might need to, your client might have different requirements as to how you're going to recognize actuals. Anyway, that's an aside. So that's a new date field that exists. Then when I select this one, you'll see that the certification date and the due date has populated based on the rules that I set for this particular contract in the claim dates rules system back at the start of this demonstration. So that's all done now. We then go through and create the rest of our detail of our claim, and we sign it off and issue it, and we're done. And that's all the new functionality around those sorts of elements. Now, if I am managing lots of consultants, maybe through design phases and the like, and I go into a consultant's claim, and each one I need to go into the invoice screen and actually generate a claim. I still need to do that one by one, but if I want to then bulk issue that out, I can select a new template type, which is consultants payment recommendations. And when I go into this particular one, you'll see that every consultant that exists, I can go all, and then deselect which, the ones that aren't consultants, and the rest are. And then I get a list of all the consultants that I need to pay where they've got a claim value, and then I can put in their invoice and their claim date. That can be changed in the contract template, and the recommendation date, and issue that out as a summary with all of the attached invoices to the client for them to be able to put into their finance system and pay. So that template control is new, and it's a sort of client-side PM function for you to then summarize all that information, patch it up in a batch, send it to the client, done and dusted, all in one go, rather than have to create 20 documents individually and then send them out. All right, that is the contract collaboration and administration 21 features.